Hey, everybody. This is your daily dose of all things royal. Hello, my gorgeous, good looking friends. Welcome to the Royal Grift's 2022 Year in Review. In this video, we're going to take a look back at all the moments that we experienced together, good, bad, and the ugly. Now, we thought a lot had happened in the year of 2021, especially surrounding Harry and Meghan, because they had dropped that bombshell interview. Remember? Anyhow, towards the end of 2021, it looked like things were going to die down. We had been flooded with Harry and Meghan propaganda, especially since after the Oprah interview, they pretty much had shot themselves in the foot and were trying to stay as relevant as possible. Even towards the end of the year, they had gone on these fake royal tours to New York, in which they pissed off a lot of New Yorkers, including myself, for one, exploiting the kids in Harlem, as well as using taxpayer state-funded money to pay for their security so they could look important and be able to insert themselves in places where they really have no business inserting themselves, such as our government policies, in which last year pissed off a lot of Americans that Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex, used her title of nobility to contact senators to push paid family leave. Totally inappropriate. Just as inappropriate as Harry going to give out awards to American veterans when they could have found somebody worthy here in the United States to have that honor. Not only were they pissing Americans off by doing this, they also were exposed for lying in a court of law, which was what happened at the end of 2021. So it's my guess that Sunshine Sachs decided to change their PR strategy because everything that they had been doing up until that point had been backfiring left and right. Maybe it was because of Meghan not listening to anybody and doing what she wants, as we know she does. Many of us last year thought that this was a sign that they were running out of money and had to cut back on their PR, hence the reason why they were splitting up their press coverage, especially since Meghan had back-to-back failures, one with the Ellen interview, the court exposure. I mean, she just couldn't win. So it looked like Meghan began on this rebranding attempt. I think this was her fifth rebranding at this point. Anyhow, the plan was to keep her hidden and stay mysterious like Greta Garbo. And I don't know how they were going to develop that or how they were going to keep that up, but that failed, as we all know. So the new year rolls around, January 2022, and before we could even get over our hangovers, boom, another puff piece issued about Meghan and Harry not being over the moon about where they're living. Hardly newsworthy, but they put it out there because they needed to deflect away from the dollar that Meghan won from her court case. We all thought that the year was kicking off on the right foot because on that same day, the media started to take notice that Archewell made less than $50,000 in 2020. So now they had eyes on the foundation and where all the money was going. The first week in January was kicking off on the right foot. We had Catherine turning 40, and what a vision she was in these released photographs that she took to mark the occasion. Tastefully done and stunning. So the public gets barely a week of Harkle-free drama when the following week we see Harry now making headlines. This petulant man-child leaks this information so that people know that he is threatening to take legal action against the British government if they do not provide security for him while he's in the UK, claiming that he offered to pay for the security. Well, anyhow, after the Archewell can of worms was open, it was discovered that Meghan and Harry had opened up 11 Delaware-based companies being suspected as shell corporations. So now more and more people are starting to put two and two together and are speculating that Harry is trying to go about getting his internationally protected status back in a very sneaky manner. You see, at the same time, in a coordinated campaign effort, the Sussex camp hired crypto scammer and bully for hire Christopher Boozy to create a fabricated report that made it appear that Meghan was under threat and that these online YouTube channels like mine and all those that are speaking truth are indeed a danger to these two. This was designed to create the optics that people like Yankee Wally, Taz, Trevor Colt were all seen as threats in the UK. And being that Meghan and Harry know how the echo chamber works, that false report was put out there and got bubbled up into the mainstream media without anyone doing any fact checking, in which then Yankee Wally, Taz, Murky, all were cyberstalked, harassed, and their safety was put in jeopardy. So, as that noise was going on, we had Netflix and Spotify finally addressing Harry and Meghan's lack of output, in which, typical Meghan and Harry fashion, deflect and blame it on Joe Rogan and his misinformation that he's been putting out, which was unfounded, but they needed to buy some time. And it sort of looked like they were trying to get out of this agreement without getting sued and having to give whatever money back. So February begins, and making global headlines is the Duchess of Cambridge becoming patron of English rugby, taking roles previously held by Prince Harry. Now that had to have burned not only Harry, but also the wife as well, because here is a position that now a woman is head of. So as the royals are making headlines, of course, the Montecito duo cannot handle it. So all of a sudden now we see Harry again pedaling like a salesman for Better Up, pushing a product called Inner Work for Better Up, and talking about his burnout. Now, we all had a good chuckle about that one because what possibly could he understand about having burnout when you don't have to worry about money? Well, if your wife is spending it, then maybe that could be stressful. Nobody believes that Harry is burnt out from this job at Better Up. In fact, I wonder how often he shows up to work for Better Up. The more believable thing for burnout would be having to deal with life itself and living with his wife, because that I could see being the most exhausting thing to deal with, next to keeping track of all the lies. Maybe start telling the truth and your life might be easier. Now that we see this shift in PR strategy and focus has been on Harry, we start seeing more of this bitter, angry, petulant man who just cannot think about anybody but himself. This past February, we kicked off celebrating this amazing accomplishment of the Queen dedicating 70 years to the throne and serving the people. You know, when you think about it, it's understandable that the Queen was upset over her relationship with Harry because strangers paid more respect than what Harry gave her in her final year. Now, I hope King Charles forgives but doesn't forget if he's deciding to bring this Yahoo back into the fold. Now, on the flip side, we see William really stepping it up in 2022, and it begins with his first official trip to Dubai, where he's sitting with leaders to talk about saving the planet and actually making a difference by going and talking to conservationists and putting a plan in place. With Earthshot, William's trip to Dubai was well received and it got global attention. And like clockwork, as if this was an attempt to overshadow William's efforts, Harry then is featured in the news doing some sort of Zoom call with Gareth Thomas and gets on his soapbox about getting tested for HIV.
Every single one of us has a duty, or at least an opportunity, to get tested ourselves to make it easier for everybody else to get tested. And then it just becomes a regular thing like anything else.
And there's Harry being sanctimonious, but he's not understanding that not everybody in the United States has health insurance. And these tests do cost money. Whether or not you're going to go splurge on it, that's up to you, but just be careful. I think more importantly is the education around it, as well as being open and honest and telling your partner that you're with so you're not getting sued for deceptively transmitting the actual disease. Now, I wonder if there's going to be a follow-up Zoom call to this. Somehow I doubt it. So a few days later, we see Harry again at the Super Bowl with Eugenie. Only people wearing masks, looking foolish, and also in a sea of people that were once their friends, but seemed to not even want to associate with him. Harry, getting to experience this American pastime, which is designed for families, decides to leave his son at home and instead take his cousin Eugenie. Some might say that's to protect Archie and keep his identity private, but I would say that that's just plain selfish. And just a couple days later, Harry gets exposed by the Mail Online for wanting to keep a secret that he really didn't offer to pay for his security and was fully expecting the taxpayer to pay for his security. At which this article sparked outrage, and there was almost 7,000 comments that were left for the Mail Online. Many raised the concern about them getting back their IPP status and what that would mean as far as access to intelligence, which currently, right now, they don't have with the security they have in the United States. Now, it is true that this special security has access to Scotland Yard, which does communicate with CIA, FBI. Harry and Meghan are the last people you want to be able to have access to people's data. These two have been very malicious in silencing their critics. So the last thing we would want is them to have access to people's information in which they could jeopardize people's safety, which no doubt Meghan would do, in my humble opinion. Moving across the pond, we see Catherine step out on her own to Denmark and hanging out with Danish royalty, looking fabulous as ever while continuing her work with the Royal Foundation on early childhood development. Now it was about this time where we saw a war break out, and of course, Meghan and Harry felt the need to issue a statement as if they were some type of global influencer dictating that global leaders need to step up, which was comical because they have absolutely zero authority in influencing any leader because they have yet to earn any respect by actually doing something with substantial positive impact. The Cambridges announced their Caribbean tour, and next we see Meghan and Harry accepting an award for the NAACP, in which was a pay for play situation, and carded out her mother because this is an award for Black people. And seeing money transfer through the Harkles' hands back into the Harkles' hands, we see Archwell giving out a Digital Justice Award to Safiya Noble, who is in partnership with Archwell. In addition, she wrote this ridiculous article backing Bot Sentinel's Fugazi report on Meghan and the fight for her life, contributing to spreading misinformation, which, by the way, she is on the misinformation advisory board at the Aspen Institute with Harry. Nah, that's not shady. Is it possible that this Digital Justice Award for $100,000 that was given to Safiya Noble was part payment for participating and spreading more misinformation in the Netflix mockumentary?
It's like symbolic annihilation. If you can destroy people who are symbols of social justice, then you can scare people to not want it to be public.
When you know what's lies and you see these people talking about this stuff, you know that they're the ones who are practicing these tactics. This digital justice buzzword that they're throwing out there is really code word for censorship. Then we start off at the beginning of March, where Meghan's crazy fans have a meltdown over the president of Ukraine thanking the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge for their support, and failed to mention Harry and Meghan's pitiful post that they put up on their website, as if he even saw it. And I know that we all jumped for joy when we saw that Samantha filed a lawsuit suing her sister for defamation. Then, as a distraction from this negative press, we see Harry pop up at a rodeo in Texas, not really explaining why he's there, but many people speculate that he was there to suck up to President Biden in order to push those better up contracts with the military, considering that Biden was there to meet with military veterans that were suffering from PTSD. Could that have happened? That's possible. Would they have broadcasted it? Absolutely not. So in March, we begin to see who the actual parties are that actually conduct and execute these targeted campaigns to get social media and the public all riled up about William and Catherine and the racist institution. And a lot of times, Meghan's mouthpiece, Scobie, has been known to be the one to start pushing out misinformation and lies. I mean, his whole book, Finding Freedom, was one big fat lie. Scobie is part of this nasty triad with Shouty Shola and Nadine Wrights, who push out this gaslighting, race baiting, angry, racist trope against the royal family. This first instance, Scobie published or posted false information. Richard Palmer called out Scobie for pushing out false information, and nobody apologized. In fact, they left it up there, and Scobie started to backpedal, making it sound like it was not his fault, but it was 100% his fault. Now, at the same time, Scobie and that triad were attacking William and Catherine, the squad equally now was going off and attacking Samantha Markle because Samantha raised this lawsuit. So now you have a coordinated campaign with Bot Sentinel, Newsweek, BuzzFeed, all now targeting Samantha and those that support her. Part of the collateral damage was Yankee Wally losing her YouTube channel. And in parallel with all this negativity surrounding Samantha Markle and Meghan Markle's lawsuit, you have Harry popping up for this promo spot for Invictus in this ridiculous orange getup.
What else? What else do I need to know?
Scheveningen.
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 Scheveningen. Oh dear. Okay. Scheveningen. Oh yeah.
And throughout all this saturation of the Harkles, it was really nice then to see Sophie Wessex pop up as she traveled to New York to speak at the UN, which was lovely. This year's Commonwealth looks stronger than ever and unified with William and Catherine and Charles and Camilla. And for a brief moment, we see the Cambridges shine not only on St. Patrick's Day, but also embarking on their Caribbean tour, at which, of course, the Montecito duo and their paid supporters reigned all over that, beginning with Shouty Shola starting it off. Pay attention, now this is the second instance where the triad is attacking both Catherine and William and trying to sabotage their work. Scobie and Nadine Wrights. And of course, while these attacks are going on, Megsy is quiet. And what we all soon realize is that the Sussex Rhoda clearly put together this targeted smear campaign. And as you can see, the various news outlets that were reporting negatively about William and Catherine are all supporters of Meghan Markle and Harry. Could this have been a PR strategy to make Meghan's announcement about her Spotify podcast look favorable? Absolutely. After all the negative stuff around the family, and you see now Meghan come out fighting for women's rights and this garbage that she's about to push out in the summertime, yeah, they needed to make her look like she was coming up roses for sure. Meghan and Harry were never invited to the Oscars, but it was the Oscars to remember with the slap scene around the world. Prince Harry had no excuse not to go to Prince Philip's memorial. Prince Charles had offered him security if he wanted to stay with him at Clarence House. But of course, he said no. He had no excuse. Probably was thinking he was going to get a ticket to the Oscars, and that didn't turn out. I'm sure this hurt the Queen. So April is now off to a fast start, and Meghan puts out to the world that she wants to trademark the word archetypes. How ridiculous. But that's Meghan. We then learn that the Queen summoned Harry and Meghan, well, Harry, to talk to him as he was about to go over to The Hague for Invictus. The Harry and Meghan show, well, the Meghan show begins, and rather than focusing on the games, everybody was focused on this couple and their, I guess, new image. Now remember, this is supposed to be Meghan's big reveal because she had been out of the public eye for the last 6 months. But in reality, we hardly missed her because she had been in the news almost every single day. Then Harry pisses off Netflix and sits down with NBC to give an exclusive interview to Hodakapi.
She's always got a great sense of humour with me, and I'm just making sure that she's, protected and got the right people around
Well,
her.
you make her laugh. That's what she always says.
We have a really special relationship. We talk about things that she can't talk about with anybody else.
I love that.
So that's always a nice piece to it. But I think after a certain age you get bored of birthdays.
This petulant man-child did this interview on the eve of the Queen's birthday, fully knowing that it was going to dominate the front page and overshadow her birthday, especially knowing that she sees the papers every single day. So to have that confronted on what would turn out to be her last birthday, to me, I find even that much more despicable of him as a human being. To be honest, I struggle at times to see who is worse, whether it be Harry or Meghan. They're equally sick. And just as they come back from Invictus, Thomas Markle has an announcement.
Looking forward to it, and I'm going to show my respects for the Queen, and I'm going to make sure that the Queen understands that my entire family respects the Queen and the royals.
Now, you know that got under her skin, but back to business. Squad is at it again, now attacking Sophie and Edward. Here we go again, the triad, Scobie, Shouty, Shola, Nadine Wrights, race baiting and gaslighting social media to now sabotage their tour. Now, I'm pointing this out because there is a clear agenda. If you notice with the pattern of almost each and every tour that involves the Commonwealth. And with this Netflix documentary and that focus or the hyper focus around the Commonwealth, it's evident on what Meghan and Harry are trying to do. So when 2023 rolls around, we're going to see more work going on with the Commonwealth. I am deeply concerned that there's going to be more attacks like this, but on a bigger scale. At least let this be documented somewhere in order to help whoever see what this pattern is to prevent anything from happening. 1 month to go to the Jubilee, and there's a lot of back and forth on whether the Sussexes will be going or they won't be going. And we kick off this month now with the Harkles all over the media with their stupid polo practice. Then the next day, Netflix drops the axe on Pearl, which I don't think Meghan really cared, considering there might not have been very much work that had been done on it. Whatever the media strategy was, it sure seemed like Meghan and Harry didn't seem to want to prioritize the Jubilee or their son's birthday over polo. But you knew that they were desperate to go to the Jubilee because within 18 minutes after the Queen released her announcement that only working royals were going to be on the balcony, well, Meghan and Harry couldn't miss that opportunity because they needed content, and I'm sure Netflix was like, polo is not going to cut it. Also, I do believe that Harry probably thought that he could somehow weasel his way onto the balcony while bringing Netflix with him. While one brother was experiencing drama, the other one was experiencing triumph, and William wins a BAFTA for his film of the Earthshot Prize. And in an attempt to compete with his brother, the very next day, Harry releases this ridiculous promo plug for Travelers, showing that he too is being an eco warrior and helping to save the planet, which this fell on deaf ears. And in some of the beautiful moments leading up to the Jubilee with the beloved Queen was this one where Tom Cruise showed up for this horse show. And what was really special about this was the Queen was able to see Lady Louise ride Prince Philip's old carriage around. And as you could see how elated she was and also pretty emotional. I'm sure that night meant a lot to her. And there's no doubt in my mind that she was very proud of her granddaughter. And I'm sure she did miss her beloved Prince Philip. So it was emotional. This even has me a little teary-eyed looking at this. And of course, the Montecito duo couldn't stand the family having the spotlight, especially with A-lister Hollywood types. They bring it right back over to California and this stupid polo nonsense. And as much as they tried to make their lives look interesting, this dark cloud still hangs over their head with Meghan's lawsuit and trying to get this case thrown out. But the real royals don't skip a beat. And here we are with this year's garden party. And as you can see, Catherine looks fabulous, along with Sophie and Edward. But the real royals don't skip a beat. And here we are with this year's garden party. And as you can see, Catherine looks fabulous, along with Sophie and Edward. I think we're going to see some really good things from them in 2023. I do hope that Prince Edward gets the Duke of Edinburgh. Next up, Archwell loses Toya Holness. Not sure why this was newsworthy, but they put it out there. And then we see Meghan try to have her own little garden party with this polo match. I mean, this was just pure comedy gold. I think one of the highlights of the year was seeing this cringe moment. It was too much. That's all I gotta say. Now, the sad part about it is that nobody is telling them that they look like fools, but they're just laughing behind their backs. And it was like, what was the point of this? Because it didn't even make it into the Netflix mockumentary. Even though the whole entire thing was staged, this wasn't even the finals for the tournament. And right after that, tragedy hit the very next day. We had Uvalde, and on the same day, Thomas Markle had a stroke. So what does the compassionate, eco-warrior, humanitarian Meghan Markle do? Well, took the opportunity for a photo op and brought her wilted flowers from the polo match to lay it on the slain war memorial for the children of Uvalde, instead of taking a 2-hour car ride to go see her father, who could have passed away, but the photo op at Uvalde would have gained more clicks than going to see her father. So obviously she saw what her priorities were. If Meghan was really that smart, she would understand that this was in bad taste. And instead, after getting the backlash, then lies to the public about trying to make amends with her father, in which Samantha Markle goes on record to clear that lie up.
We have not, and I heard rumors that she was trying to reach out to my dad's camp, but my brother and I are my dad's camp, and his phone number has never changed. His address has never changed. And even though he can't speak, his language comprehension is perfect. She could text him, she could contact him, and he can text back. So those rumors are not true. She has not reached out.
Okay, then.
Moving on to one of the more memorable and highlights of my 2022, and that was experiencing the Jubilee. Even though I'm in the United States, I was able to experience this online with this community, which I thought was absolutely awesome. This was such a historic event, and to see all the pomp and circumstance and how pageantry really is done. I thought it was really awesome. The entire weekend was fun to connect with many people from around the world on this channel, and I really appreciated the time everybody spent with me in order to experience and watch this live. And some of those moments were seeing those kids having fun, but then also seeing how ridiculous the Harkles looked as far as trying to get their face in the spotlight, and then thinking that they were going to be well received in the UK when it was music to my ears hearing those boos. Then Then came the Saturday night concert, and to be able to spend that with this community on a live, I think I had around 20 something thousand people watching at once, which was the most I've ever had on a live. Not that I do lives often, but it was pretty impressive having people from all over the world come to watch, the performances, and then, seeing the Queen with Paddington Bear and seeing George and Charlotte's face light up. It was just such a happy, happy evening. And then on the final day, everybody came back and we got to watch all the Jubilee babies, especially Boss Baby Louie, who absolutely stole the show for the entire weekend. And then that special moment of the Queen coming out onto the balcony for what we now know would be her final time. Now, for that one moment, forget Meghan, but Harry couldn't put himself second and put his grandmother first, to just be there for her, to have that moment. Not that it was ruined because they weren't there, but I'm sure the Queen was upset that he wasn't there to be with the family in partaking in this historic event. It just blows my mind that he is that selfish and that big of a baby that he had to go home because he felt that he wasn't the star of the show. And even more pathetic is Meghan parading this fabricated child in front of the world because she's jealous of Louis. Like, nothing they do is authentic or genuine. It's all for their selfish gain. And quite frankly, it's getting so boring. Like, nobody cares about what the children look like anymore. We honestly don't care. And this attitude that they have, like the family owes them this apology. For what? They didn't do anything wrong. Because Meghan didn't get everything that she wanted and she couldn't be the star of the show, and you're pissed off? Well, too bad. You look ridiculous. Like, they really need professional help because they're doing more damage to the world than good. Instead of giving the public a break upon coming back from the Jubilee and reflecting on why they were booed so much, they proceed to saturate the media again with this BS polo nonsense. And of course, Meghan, thinking that the world needs to hear about what she thinks about Roe v. Wade being turned over, she had to do a full on spread in Vogue magazine with this fake photo op of her being fake shocked about the decision, which, again, people are like, shut up. However, in my opinion, Camilla came out on top because she made the cover of Vogue for her 75th birthday and she looked fabulous. So the beginning of July rolls around and these random photos pop up of what appears to be Harry and Meghan and Archie. And we all were scratching our heads, why Wyoming for July 4th? And then looking at these pictures, not really sure if it's them. Well, we are looking at them now, and most likely they are duplicates of the child. That's not Archie, in my opinion. But it all makes sense because around that same exact time, we had Catherine and William showing how it's done at polo. I'm sure we all know that people have faults, but when I look at them, I'm like looking very close. I don't see any. It's like flawless. What it exudes is just this positive radiance and just happiness. To me, looking at the way they carry themselves, the way they dress, the way they interact with people, that's pure class. That's what class looks like. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing more of them in 2023. Another highlight of the year for me was Tom Bower's book dropping. Woo, that really threw a wrench in Meghan and Harry's dominate the world plans. And we know that Meghan Markle practices the never complain, never explain mantra when she wants to. Because when this book had dropped, she pretended as if everything was all right in the world. Harry, on the other hand, not so much. You could tell that it was weighing on him, specifically when they went to New York and Harry had to give his UN speech to an empty room. Harry's anger and bitterness was definitely felt in his speech for Nelson Mandela Day. Unfortunately for him, he pissed off a lot of Americans.
Prince Harry is once again bashing the USA, using a recent speech at the UN to say this about our great country. Take a listen.
This has been a painful year in a painful decade. We're living through a pandemic that continues to ravage communities in every corner of the globe. Climate change wreaking havoc on our planet, with the most vulnerable suffering most of all. The few weaponizing lies and disinformation at the expense of the many. And from the horrific war in Ukraine to the rolling back of constitutional rights here in the United States, we are witnessing a global assault on democracy and freedom.
Yes, save us the lectures. Now, those condescending remarks prompted widespread mockery for Harry's complete and total disconnect from reality. Remember, Harry, along with his wife, Meghan Markle, are the same people they claim they wanted privacy. So why all the hatred and disdain for the country that he's choosing to move to? After rejecting royal life in the UK, but he's still a multi-millionaire. Why all the animosity and hatred and anger from someone that lives such a privileged life?
While one brother was looking foolish, the other one continued keeping his head down and moving forward, announcing that the Earthshot Prize and trip to Boston in December. The Queen makes a final attempt to extend an invite to Harry and Meghan to see her at the end of the summer. And it was at this point that we see the Harkles PR machine take a dramatic shift in behavior, indicating that Sunshine Sachs was no longer representing them. On Meghan's birthday, People magazine puts Catherine on its cover, sending a very clear message. We immediately start to see some bizarre headlines coming out, specifically around Harry popping up in Africa for a 36-hour trip, which, in my opinion, turned out to be completely staged and fabricated. Because at the same time, Meghan then leaks a photo of herself in her au naturel curly-haired state and carting out her mother to represent the population of Black Americans or African Americans, which then tied into the very next day of Archetypes launching with the first episode featuring Serena Williams, in which Meghan talks about her experience in South Africa and disrespecting and insulting at the same time the culture with her bold-faced lies, thus sparking the movement Vote Meghan. Coming off that drama, we then see Prince Harry, Echo Warrior, waiting on the tarmac for someone to bring his polo gear that he forgot so he could take his private jet to Colorado to play for Santa Bali. And at this point, many are speculating if Meghan and Harry are really living together, but indeed now are separated. With Meghan now trying to sabotage not only Harry's family, but also Harry himself by deliberately hurting him in the media using his mother as the weapon. This sick and twisted woman not only lied throughout this article, but she had made it so it overshadowed a dead woman's anniversary in order to gain the spotlight and be associated with her. And with this cut article, it just reeked of malice and desperation. The standout moment then for Meghan's podcast Archetypes was with Mariah Carey and Mariah calling Meghan out for being a diva. The audience witnesses firsthand how thin-skinned and insecure Meghan really is. By episode 2, we realize that this podcast is going to be used to address all the criticism that Meghan has received, and making it about herself. With Netflix now lighting a fire under their asses, Meghan and Harry create this fake European tour and go off in September to the UK to promote, I don't know really what Meghan was doing at One Young World except promoting herself, and then Harry going to Dusseldorf, Germany to kick off the 2023 Invictus Games.
Me, 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 me.
At this point, we do see that there is a competitive struggle between the two of them. Harry's trying to keep Invictus as his own project and doing his best, but unfortunately failing at stopping Meghan from trying to be the center of attention on everything. While Meghan and Harry were on their self-serving vanity tour, the Queen met with, in what would be her final engagement, Liz Truss. Sadly, 2 days later, she passed away. This was a moment in history that will stand out for 2022. The world was witness to history taking place. The imminent death of a sovereign is a major constitutional matter. At 6:30 p.m., it was announced the Queen had passed away. During the swift transition to the new sovereign, there were many memorable moments, beginning with King Charles addressing the nation and the world that the Queen had passed away and proclaiming his commitment and duty now as king. During this historic address, we learned that the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge will now become the Prince and Princess of Wales, while the king wishing his very best to Harry and Meghan overseas as they build their new life. Then the very next day, Charles is then officially proclaimed king at St. James Palace. In parallel, the Queen's coffin procession begins in Scotland. Unfortunately, these iconic moments of the Queen's procession were overshadowed by the shenanigans of Harry and Meghan, who selfishly tried to make it about themselves and were planning on doing this walkabout without Catherine and William. It's a good thing that William was tipped off by the media Harry and Meghan were planning to use to do this. I suspect both William and Catherine were furious and put a stop to their planned exploitation by flipping the script and taking over this walkabout, making it look like they were the gracious ones and inviting these two diabolical human beings. It was really fun to watch Meghan squirm because, remember, a couple weeks before, she had trashed the family in that Cut article. I bet she didn't think she would be coming face to face with the family so soon. So if she was uncomfortable, good. We do know that they were causing a lot of trouble for the family, specifically in leaking information to the press. And William, being the smart man that he is, set his brother up in order to prove the point that he leaks information to the media and cannot be trusted. To prove this point, William told his brother that the Queen would be traveling by train from Scotland to London, when in reality she was actually taking the RAF flight 1 hour and 12 minutes to London. And then Harry told his mouthpiece, Omid Scobie, who in turn then broadcasted it on live television.
Will end up laying at rest at the smallest palace in Edinburgh before it makes its journey on one of the royal trains over to the UK. Of course, we know that eventually the Queen's wish is.
During this walkabout, Meghan's true colors shine through. In her fakeness, she managed to snap again at one of the top aides for William and Catherine. And you know that they weren't having it and shut it down immediately. After the Queen's coffin made it to London, we began to see more of the family getting together and closing ranks to ice out the two traitors in the family. The family overall did their best to honor the matriarch while ignoring the two grown adult children who should have went home because neither of them, well, at least Meghan, didn't deserve to be there, as they hold part responsibility for accelerating not only Prince Philip's death, but also the Queen's for all the toxic attacks that they have been putting out relentlessly. Even in the time of grieving such a monumental loss, they still continued to bitch and moan about how they have been unfairly affected and felt so entitled to continue to make it about themselves. They had no right to be pissed off that they weren't invited to this state reception the night before the Queen's funeral. And how pathetic did they look in lying that they received an invitation and had to broadcast it to their traditional Sussex rota to make it look like the family was treating them unfairly. This funeral was nothing that I think I will ever see again in my lifetime. And although sad occasion, I feel blessed to have been a part of it and to share this experience of witnessing, celebrating a life that many around the world took the time out of their day to pay respect and honor. I give a lot of credit to Catherine, Sophie, and Camilla for holding it together and keeping that dark shadow walking behind them around without losing it completely. The unsung hero out of this was Mr. Candle. Other top moments that stood out were the Queen's corgis and her pony saying one last goodbye, Charlotte looking over at Harry and recognizing that he's changed, not for the good. Finally, the jewels removed, symbolizing that the Queen has now returned back to being a private citizen, in theory. After coming back from the funeral, Little Miss One Left Eye Tear Go was exposed then now in the book Courtiers as the biggest bully out there, revealing that Brand Megan is just a nasty piece of work, and how she treated her staff. It explains why is a revolving door of employees. Post-Queen's death, rumors now flaring around that Harry is scrambling to edit his memoir. October begins and the family releases a new portrait of Queen Camilla, King Charles, and the Prince and Princess of Wales. And out of bitterness and jealousy and envy, the Harkles release their own portrait, which screams of arrogance and not in any way making anyone like them even more by doing it. This FU picture is pathetic. But we're back to business as usual with the Harkles as they proceed to continue to keep saturating the media. And week after week, Meghan proceeds to piss many people off with her ignorance and her arrogance, telling more lies and making up more stories, in order to rebrand herself as someone that is actually respectable. As if the public wasn't tortured enough, then Meghan proceeds to push out her variety rebranding propaganda, which nobody is buying at this point, and making her look absolutely insane. We get glimpses of Catherine as the new Princess of Wales, and for moments we feel that the world is going to be okay, but then we get snapped back into the world of the Harkles because they need to hog the spotlight and attention. We are now reminded that Harry has a book coming out, and he has titled it Spare, in which Harry becomes the laughingstock of the world now, but definitely doesn't outshine his wife. Soon enough, before we know it, November rolls around, and Harry's paymaster, Netflix, releases the 5th season of The Crown, which then falls on deaf ears because it sucked. In competition with Catherine and William for their upcoming December trip for the Earthshot Prize, Harry and Meghan proceed to purchase another award, and this time around was the Robert F. Kennedy Human Rights Award in fighting structural racism. What unfolded was clearly an attempt to sabotage and ruin William and Catherine's trip here to the United States. And that was quite obvious when you see the events that went down and the timing of the events of the Harkles and the association of the people who were causing trouble connected to the Harkles. We begin with Meghan putting out positive press about herself and going to Indianapolis and talking about herself at this women's conference and leaving each guest with a take-home of picture of her and Harry, which made me laugh. This positive press was timed perfectly because the next day, the accusations of the institution being racist started to amplify as a result of Fugazi Nagazi making these claims that Lady Susan Hussey was racist and detailed her harrowing experience at the palace. But we soon discover that Fugazi Nagazi is tied to the Sussex Squad and is close with Misan Harriman, who Meghan Markle and Prince Harry work with. It quickly becomes clear that this was a deliberate attempt to sabotage William and Catherine's big trip of the year with the Earthshot Prize by drumming up the fact that they believe that the institution is racist, or going along with this false narrative in order to lift Meghan and Harry up and justify their reasons for then the following week to go accept that Ripple of Hope award, in which was absolute bullshit. And without fail, we have the triad of gaslighting and race baiting, Omid Scobie, Nadine Wrights, and Shouty Shola. As soon as William and Catherine land in the United States, William has to take it upon himself and have his office address a statement over this noise that's being created by the Harkles' paid psychotic fans. And every single day, the Harkles made every attempt to overshadow William and Catherine's trip, but unsuccessfully did so, beginning with the Invictus and then dropping their trailer for their stupid mockumentary that was released this month. And at the same time, the ongoing attacks by the triad Omid Scobie, Nadine Wrights, and Shouty Shola continue as the the Waleses were in the United States. The palace needs to understand that this triad of people are going to continue into 2023 if the royal family do intend to spend more time in the Commonwealth. Shouty Shola is a divisive figure and she knows what she's doing. If the intention is to dismantle the Commonwealth, you got to realize that there are a lot of consequences negatively to the people of the Commonwealth that will follow if being led by these maniacs in trying to abolish the monarchy for their own selfish purposes. The hatred that these extremists have, as well as Harry and Meghan, are a threat to democracy. Now, as you've seen throughout this video, it's the same people making the same noise tied to both Harry and Meghan. Clearly, there is a problem we have here, and while Catherine and William are doing great work, it is becoming extremely difficult for them with the targeted hate that is spewed against them every time they try and do something good for the world. It's crystal clear that Meghan and Harry are pushing an agenda, and this agenda involves either taking down the monarchy and dismantling the Commonwealth, whether they think that they're going to be able to have some sort of power in rule or opportunity, which it was clear in the mockumentary that Harry knows about this opportunity, and so does Meghan. And from the beginning, their focus was the Commonwealth. These two are bitter because they didn't get what they wanted, the half in, half out, to be able to monetize off of the royal brand. And because of that, as we have seen by Harry's actions and his behavior, he is making his grandmother pay for saying no to him. And we see this reflected throughout the entire year by him being disrespectful, by willfully and purposely hurting her at every turn that he could make, whether it be disrespecting her and not acknowledging her decisions, disrespecting her by telling these lies. And he's going to continue to keep doing it because he's angry. And also, no doubt, very unhappy because nothing has been working out for him the way that he wanted. When you look back on the events of the year, I think it was a smart thing for the family to do by not engaging and rising above it. Because as we sit here at the end of 2022, the royals are more popular than ever and have many more people now interested in what they're doing. The only real benefit of Harry and Meghan is the fact that they have brought attention onto the royal family. The Montecito duo are not contributing anything to society aside from grifting. And America is waking up to it. Most recently, Meghan received an award from our own Ben Shapiro.
We're on to the next category, which is most lecherous leech. Ooh, like people who have glommed onto power and used it for their own power. Man, neck and neck race between Hunter Biden, who ran around picking up bags of cash using his daddy's name while snorting Parmesan cheese off the carpet, and Meghan Markle, whose job it was to be a suitcase lady.
Meghan, open the case.
And then she was on the hit series Suits, piece of Shakespearean art, and then parlayed that into being a princess and now spends her days manipulating her dim bulb husband into ripping on his family so she can get paid and pretend to be a woke warrior princess. I'm going to go Meghan Markle here. Hunter Biden is bad, but Hunter Biden is preceded in his lecherousness and leechness by many other presidential family members. But Meghan Markle is truly unprecedented in how obnoxious she is.
Pleasure to meet you, Your Majesty. Was that okay?
Ripping on the Queen because you are too foolish to understand that there's actual pomp and circumstance attached to being the Queen of England And yet it's all about you and your race, and everybody's mean to you.
It's about hatred. It's about race.
While you sit there in your palatial, multi-million-dollar estate in Los Angeles getting contracts from Netflix. Ugh, Meghan Markle. Ugh.
And as of Saturday, December 31st, Meghan and Harry topped the list of the most annoying celebrities in 2022. Clearly, you can see that America is getting very sick of these two. I didn't think the Harkles would outdo themselves from 2021 in the amount of propaganda that they have pushed, but I was wrong. And clearly, as you have seen in this year in review, they kept forcing their garbage down people's throats everywhere we turned. Hopefully, more and more people recognize that it's tiresome and they just need to go away. And what many are starting to discover is that anything that the Harkles touch or put their names to is like the kiss of death. Like, nobody is watching this today. I sure am not watching it. So what do I see in 2023? Well, we are still going to get saturated with the Harkles in the first part of the year because I'm sure, give it a day or two, we're going to start seeing the propaganda around Harry's book. I'm willing to bet that Vanity Fair or like Vogue or Elle is going to release excerpts, exclusive excerpts of this book that we're going to get a taste of what the book is about. We know that Harry is going to do 1 or 2 scripted interviews where he will know the questions in advance and have his narrative written out properly by Meghan. And be sure that if Harry's getting all the attention, Meghan will not be able to help herself and end up doing something to get herself into the news. I think we're going to see Archewell come under scrutiny this year, just because once their tax returns finally get published, we'll get to see what type of donations they are making to some of these organizations and if this couple is evading taxes. What I'm looking forward to the most is Tom Bower's additional chapters being published in early spring, and rumor has it that Tom Bower is going to be doing more writing around Doria, so that should be really interesting to review and discuss with everyone. We have the King's coronation on May 6th this year. That's going to be a historic event that I'm looking forward to watching and sharing the experience with you guys. We also have the removal of titles bill that is up for debate, and that's a bill to give the monarch powers to remove titles. Personally, in my opinion, I don't think that it's going to matter or make any difference if they take away the Duke and Duchess of Sussex titles, because at this point right now, that means nothing in the United States and it's not really helping them. I think here's the problem. If King Charles has the power to remove those titles, I think what it will do, it will fuel Meghan and Harry to then get more involved in US politics. Because if you take those titles away, then Meghan can actually run for an office. I don't think that Meghan will run for an office if she has to voluntarily give up those titles. I do believe, if provoked, because Meghan is a narcissist, would go and try and get herself elected somewhere into some government position in order to be a threat to the family. And she would do it out of spite, not that she would care to be doing the work, or even if she will do the work. She would just do it to get in to be that threat to the family. The only benefit to having these titles removed is ensuring that they don't get the IPP status that route, but they would be able to get the IPP status if Meghan does run for an office or if she is delegated to the UN, which is also another option that I believe that they are considering. Either way, the IRS needs to get in there and do an audit, as well as Samantha's court case needs to be able to happen. Otherwise, if IPP status is granted before then neither of those two things will be able to happen because she will have immunity. But I am very much looking forward to this case this year. Other court cases that will be interesting to follow are the Jason Goodman versus Christopher Boozy defamation case, as well as Nate the lawyer versus Christopher Boozy defamation case. I'm sure we're going to get some very interesting information come out of that. We then have the Invictus Games, and I will bet that Meghan and Harry somehow will not be fully participating in this. We might see another Meghan and Harry show, but then they might just peace out after the opening ceremony. But I do believe we'll slowly see them fade out, because I don't think Meghan is really that interested in supporting this cause. And I don't think that Invictus is really too pleased with having these two as the face of the actual games. We should be excited to see the Markles documentary release, hopefully next year. I am looking forward to seeing their side of the story. It would be very interesting to see Samantha's court process from behind the scenes as she's going through this, especially leading up to the court case in October. I know we're going to see more of these, pieces coming out about the Harkles being invited to the Oscars, the Emmys. They're just going to keep putting out that they've been invited to this and that to bump up their popularity, when in actuality they're not getting any invites. We've seen this time and time over again. If they can't buy it, then most likely they're not invited. So we'll leave it at that. There is no doubt that 2023 is going to be another eventful year. We've got a lot to look forward to and a lot to be grateful for. This was the Royal Grift's 2022 Year in Review. Wishing everyone a very healthy and happy new year. And on that note, please be safe, and I will catch you guys soon. Bye.
I was such a fraud.